My eyeball hurts. Like, it's sore.
Your eyeball?
Yeah.
Like the ball itself?
Yes.
Why?
I don't know. I just, I move it around, and it just, it hurts as I move it.
You want me to fix it?
Yeah, you can do that?
Yeah. Sit still. This is really gonna fucking hurt. Okay. Wow, that came out kind of clean.
Hey, I can see up your nose.
Clean? Up my nose?
Nope.
Welcome to the No Experience Podcast, where two dudes who found a way are here to talk about anything and everything. I'm Ammar Abdullah, and I'm joined as always by my radical co-host, Jared Hines, and today we are here to talk about Drake Bell and the lascivious accusations against him. So, Jared, did you grow up watching Drake and Josh at all?
Actually, no, not really.
I think it might have been, when were you watching, kid shows, roughly? If you had to, peg a year?
I don't fucking know. The same age as, everybody else. Look, Drake and Josh was still on TV when I was, watching cartoons and shit. I just didn't watch it.
You just skipped out on it?
Yeah.
That's a little bit of a shame, honestly. It was a good sitcom. I think it was about the best sitcom Nickelodeon ever had. And I can't really think of a close second, to be honest. But Drake and Josh isn't really what we're here to talk about. Not the sitcom. We're here to talk about Drake. And I don't mean Drake I'm different. Yeah, I'm different. Not that Drake.
Hey everybody, it's Jared coming at you in post. I'm just here to say real quick. Mar, you big fucking dummy. That's not Drake. That's
Two Chainz.
Drake Bell. One half of the Drake and Josh combo.
Yeah, after talking about Drake and Josh, I don't think anybody was confused.
They might have been confused.
Okay.
It's possible. Look, I am a river unto the people, okay, and I provide for them, especially the ones who are like me and easily confused.
Fuck it. What? All right. Drake of Drake and Josh.
Yes, Drake Bell of Drake and Josh. He was a man who wore many hats: actor, comedian, singer-songwriter, guitarist. You know, he was a man of many talents, and one talent that we've discovered recently that he apparently had was grooming young children. Kind of an awful little thing that has come out about him the past couple of months. Apparently, Drake Bell, he has been tried and pled guilty to the grooming and endangerment of a minor.
Yeah, that's obviously not good.
Yeah, definitely a horrible thing. Did you expect it? Did you see it coming?
No, but then again, I wasn't paying attention to Drake Bell.
That's fair. See, I was paying a little bit of attention to Drake Bell, and his life has kind of taken a bit of a wibbly-wobbly turn after Drake and Josh went off the air. He has been grasping at straws, trying to find any sense of relevancy doing anything. He was doing a weird diving game show for a little while. He has established a pretty successful career as a reggaeton star in South America, South and Central America, that is. He has been relatively successful, but he's always had the air of a just complete entitled douchebag narcissist in every clip I've ever seen of him. But I was a little bit blindsided, man. I'm going to be honest. When I saw, when it came out, when the news broke that Drake had been for years grooming teenagers and at some point even engaging in illicit sexual activity with teenagers, I was I knew this guy was an asshole. He is known for being kind of a dick to people, but I didn't think he was capable of that. And it's kind of been this weird double-edged sword where I listen to a lot of Drake Bell's music. I have a lot of it in my own Spotify playlists and shit, and it's ruined now. Just completely ruined. You know, I can never listen to any of his music ever again without thinking of the awful thing that he just did.
Yeah. I didn't even know he did music.
Yeah, we knew that, you may have known that in the context of the show, Drake and Josh, he was doing music, but he was a musician outside of that. He's had a relatively successful music career, irrespective of that show and the song and the music he did for that. It's just, it was like.
Also, real quick before somebody puts it in the comments, talking about how you should be able to separate the art from the artist, and that's great from an intellectual standpoint. Like, I am consciously going to separate these two things for the sake of like discussion or like picking apart the music and like appreciating that music. But if it's something internal, like listening to the music and then you can't help but think about the person who made it and the shit they did, that's different.
Yeah, no, and I mean, I'm a fervent proponent of separating the art from the artist. I still listen to Michael Jackson's music, even though there's some pretty strong evidence that he has participated in some pretty ugly acts throughout his life.
He diddled kids.
Yeah, I mean, fuck, man, you don't gotta beat him over the head with it. They're fucking about as subtle as a bag of bricks. Oh yeah, no, but he did fuck around with kids, and that's awful, right? A terrible thing. But he's also dead, and I think that might be one of the things that like made a difference for me, is that Drake Bell is still very much alive. He is still out there being a person who exists in the world, right? And so now every time I listen to his music, I'm like, this is a man who has fucked around with children and might still be fucking around with children, right? So it's a little bit harder for me to separate the art from the artist in that instance. You know what I'm saying? I couldn't tell you why. I've been one of the most vocal defenders of like, you gotta, once the art is out there in the world and in the zeitgeist, it no longer belongs to the person who made it. It belongs to the people who are listening to it or watching it or seeing it, as the case may be. But something about this particular one and seeing it play out with somebody who's been like, somebody that I've watched on television and listened to his music since I was a child, since I was 5 or 6, made this a lot fucking harder to just turn the other way and focus on, well, he did bad things, but this art is really good,
I think that's just a point that should be made, that it's, when it comes to separating the art from the artist, it's not as simple as just like, oh, this is not theirs anymore. There's more factors that go into it, right?
Yeah, I mean, in a less concrete way, it's like, yeah, that's my mentality, right? That's my standpoint, is that once the art is out there, it doesn't belong to them, it belongs to me. And it belongs to you, and it belongs to anybody else who might have been affected by it. But this event that happened still has the propensity to like give financial support to somebody who did something fucking horrendous, like, I don't know if how much about the story have you heard?
Not much.
So it's kind of disturbing. Like I watched, there was a I watched the whole trial. It was put up publicly for anybody to view. And in the trial, oh my god, they talk about like this girl was the biggest fan of Drake Bell from the time she was young and would like hang out with him and his family, and Drake would like make passes at her, right? Like, what, she was fucking 14, 15 years old, and he was being like, man, you got to hurry up and turn 18 and shit. And I'm like,
oh my god,
horrible, right? A terrible fucking thing. It's a little bit weird that his partner in crime on Drake and Josh Peck, he hasn't really said much about it beyond saying that it's disappointing. And I'm like, I think you need to say more than that. Drake Bell has been on Josh Peck. Josh Peck has a relatively successful YouTube channel. He's kind of like an influencer, vlog channel type beat. And he has had Drake Bell on his channel in as recent as like the past 2 years. You have to say something. He has to get out there and say something and be like, I 100% condemn these actions. Because otherwise it's like an implicit condoning of what Drake Bell did. Or at least that's how it feels to me. Do you feel that? Do you think that I'm maybe over-egging the pudding a little bit on that one?
Maybe a little bit, at least from my perspective. Because, like, I mean, they're still people. And if they were close to this person, right, it's wrought something on their lives. So if they don't want to go out and write, like, 6 paragraphs about this shit, condemning them or anything, then, I feel like that's fair. I feel like some people don't want to have to deal with this anymore then they already have to.
Yeah, I guess I don't disagree. It's just even like when the Louis C.K. accusations came out about some of the weird shit that Louis C.K. was up to behind the scenes, Sarah Silverman, who is a comedian who was best like close friends with Louis C.K. for years and years, came out in condemnation. I mean, she also said that this is my friend. You know, you can say that. You can say, this is my friend. This is somebody who has been in my life for a long time and who I love dearly, but they did something horrible. You know, like I feel like that's almost part of like the due diligence of being a celebrity.
I think I know where you're going with this, and I agree. I feel like celebrities have a certain amount of responsibility in regards to the effect that they have on their audience, right?
Yeah.
They have an immense amount of influence on people. So there's a certain amount of responsibility to that in regards to how you, what you say and how you present yourself. And that's not to say that like, oh, you need to be like perfect. You need to be dressing up nice. You need to conform to all these fucking ridiculous ideals. Just like, you shouldn't be, saying that neo-Nazis should be listened to and shit like that.
Or whatever, right? Like, take, I mean, that's like a smaller example, right? But this is like, so it's such a beyond the pale thing that Drake Bell did here that I think like Josh Peck, who has a huge following on YouTube, the guy has millions of subscribers, he has a responsibility to them and the people who might be listening to the things that he has to say to come out in condemnation of this and not to perpetuate like this weird, Hollywood pedophilic rape culture, like,
yeah,
that's kind of a loaded term. A lot of people have made a lot of like problems with the term rape culture, but Hollywood is a place where there is legitimately a rape culture where, the pedophilic, disgusting predilections of celebrities, that's a real thing. That's a real thing that happens. And it's a real thing that continues to happen because no major celebrity wants to come out in condemnation of it, which is fucking disturbing, right?
It's disturbing, but it also makes a little sense because putting aside just the fact that, they have their career at stake, some people don't have the will to fight.
Yeah.
Right. Especially when nobody else is fighting either, and they feel like they're going to be against literally the rest of their world.
Right. And I guess it's easy for you and me to speak from a position of relative anonymity, obscurity, and say like, well, the morally correct thing to do is to come out in condemnation of this act, right? But we don't have the pressure of like a massive audience like that.
Yeah, we haven't been there. We don't have that experience.
Yeah, we're small potatoes compared, right? It's tough, I mean, I've even seen it in like smaller scale situations. I've heard of people who have like, like abusers or predators in the workplace, right? Like small scale ones, but don't feel comfortable jeopardizing their livelihood basically to condemn this person publicly. And so it's like the pressure of condemning someone publicly for an active transgression, particularly one that's like so ugly and so disgusting, like grooming a 15-year-old girl for years, that is something that you might not want to condemn just because it's the morally right thing to do, it's not that I don't understand. I'm not unsympathetic to why somebody wouldn't want to come out and say what Drake Bell did was wrong and it was disgusting and he should be held to task for it. I can understand why you wouldn't want to do that. But you still should, because it's the morally right thing to do. At least by my approximation. Maybe that's the ramblings of like someone who has the privilege of obscurity, but I think that it's way less important for me to condemn him than it is for very popular people in the public sphere who knew him to condemn him. That's way more important to me.
I agree. I think it's important. Yeah, I mean, we already went past the point of like talking about the fact that we understand why somebody might not want to. So
yeah, it's just, I mean, it's a responsibility, you know, it really is, and it's a burden, and I'm not, you know, I'm not blind to the burden that somebody in that position of relative power or influence might be carrying, but that to me is when it's the most important to stand on your morals and be to condemn it in no uncertain terms, to condemn it. You know, that's when it's the most fucking important, I think.
I agree. What else is there to...
There's not a whole lot else to say about it. I mean, I felt inclined to come out here in condemnation of somebody whose art I have appreciated in the past and say, this person did something wrong. So wrong. About as wrong as it gets. You know, it's like, took advantage of the influence that he had over a young girl and the private life between him and this young lady. He took advantage of that and took advantage of her, and that's dark and something that I think with no uncertainty has to be like no hiding in the gray area, no nuance about this argument. Drake Bell was fucking around with a child. You don't fuck around with kids. You know, that is so beyond the pale to me, and that is something that needs to be condemned in as many places by as many people as possible. Even in our small scope and audience, it is important that we say that shit was wrong. And that's really all I have to say about that, I think.
Yeah, there's not much more to say.
I'd wager not. I would wager that is pretty much as good of a condemnation as I can give. What he did was wrong. So wrong. Hold his feet to the fire about it.
While we're on that topic of holding people's feet to the fire, completely off topic, but since Biden became president, I feel like people haven't been holding him to the same pressure that they have Trump.
No, not in the slightest. I think people were like so eager for a non-Trump presidency that they just take whatever they can get with Biden.
Yeah, but God, it's just like, even if you get somebody that you like and you really wanted in office, you should hold them just as accountable as the person that you hated.
I'd say more so. You have to hold them more accountable.
More accountable. You need to look at them closely and properly like break down what they're doing and hold them accountable when they're not making their promises, when they're not doing good things.
Oh yeah, because there's still kids in cages right now.
Yeah,
there are still kids in immigration like camps being kept in cages, right? So it's like, I mean, this is not altogether unrelated. It you know, jumps on the same like the same topic of like accountability, both like personally and you know, in terms of whatever influence or audience you might have. You know, you have to fucking hold those people accountable. Like, you can't just be like, well, you know, at least it's not Trump.
Yeah, no, that's not good enough.
Yeah, it's like, that's not even remotely good enough.
Your standards need to be better.
Yeah, I think a lot of people, I think that might be the moral or the message that we're trying to communicate in this episode, is that your standards have to be better. You have to have a higher set of moral laws, like a moral code that you can adhere to, where you don't let people get away with doing the bare minimum. You don't let people get away with, you know, just barely doing enough.
All the time you sit complacent is time spent towards creating a terrible history.
Oh yeah, it you know, a better world only comes when, you know, the people stand and say, you know, this is good, this is bad, this is right, this is wrong, you know? And if you're not willing to stand on your morals and say that, then you deserve Biden. You deserve exactly what you got. Frankly, you might deserve Trump if that's the standpoint you have, is that it's not worth telling Biden, like, you know, you're not going to fucking pretend anymore. You have to give us substantive change because that's what we voted for, you know? I don't know. It's the reason that so many people are not are engaging in like the no confidence movement, which I don't know if you've heard much about that, but
I don't think so.
yeah, the no confidence movement is basically a movement of American citizens who are disenfranchised by like DNC politics, where it's like, you know, this lesser of two evils dichotomy bullshit that we've had to vote for the past couple of years. The past few electoral cycles, where it's like it's never voting for something better, it's always voting for something less worse, you know? So no confidence is based on the idea that in Europe and a lot of places, people have the option, if they don't agree with the politics of any of the elected officials, to put no confidence on their ballot, and that will be tabulated separately. Where if you put it, it's like, okay, this percentage of people do not believe in the elected officials here. This amount of people are not confident in the options that they have. How can we fix that? That's something that we don't have in America. In America, it's basically the tremendous social pressure that is put on young voters and voters in general, is that you must vote because it is your civic duty, right? And like, I don't even know that I agree with that. I think that's like a holdover from a sort of, you know, old timey, like it's like an old timey holdover from a different time, where it's like you vote because you have the option, and if you don't vote, then you have no right to complain. It's like this weird social pressure thing where people are like, they vote basically out of like a dogmatic like adherence to like tradition and the ideal of it, rather than recognizing that your vote is not worth anything. Your vote is worth practically nothing, because, you know, we've seen it time and time again where the DNC has screwed candidates with the ability for like real substantive change out of a nomination because of shit like super delegates and the electoral college and shit like that keeps the voting power of the individual held way down. You know, that's my opinion, is that it's like, frankly, I'd like to see a world where people don't vote just because it's your civic duty and you have to. I want to see a world where people are voting because the options are good and they are exciting, not just because you have to.
I agree. And also, you have the right to vote, and therefore you have the right not to vote.
Yeah, that's sort of that's, you know, that's controversial to even say, is that it's like, I have the right not to vote, you know, because I don't agree with either of the elected options, you know? The ideal world for me is a world where nobody, like for just for one presidential election, nobody goes out and votes.
I think that would be good.
Unprecedented, honestly. For one.
Yeah.
And, you know, also like a clear and present, unmistakable message to the electorate that we are not going to settle for a lesser of two evils duopoly anymore. You know? I think we're a couple years off from that being a practical option, but I think that the writing is on the wall and the time is coming that if, you know, politicians are not being held accountable, then eventually people will stop voting. And eventually the electoral process breaks down.
Well, after that whole fucking shindig.
Yeah, we covered a lot of ground there, and not altogether was it all related to Drake Bell, but it is all related to accountability, which is the overall message we want people to walk away from this episode with, is to be accountable and to hold others accountable. You know, that's the most important fucking thing you can do. Never be satisfied, always be skeptical, never be complacent. That I agree with, and that's about as good of a stopping place as any, ain't it, Jared?
Yes, sir. Thank you for listening to the No Experience podcast. We were glad to have you. Hope that we didn't break your neck with that kind of whiplash.
Yeah, we kind of just took you guys on a strange ride there, but we hope you appreciated the episode anyway.
If you ever had any doubts about us having ADHD, here's your proof.
Yeah, well, as always, I mean, you know, give us a subscription, give us a like on the video. That shit really helps us out in building our audience, you know. Stand up for the little guy, baby. Stand up for those little dudes who are just trying their best out here in this, you know, topsy-turvy YouTube landscape we're all working in. You can follow us on Facebook at the No Experience Podcast. You can follow us on Twitter at the Dongin Man. You can even follow us on TikTok now at Brick Road, which is my personal TikTok where I post clips from every episode. I'm kind of doing a little bit of catching up. We just started it 2 or 3 episodes ago, so I'm sort of going back through our back catalog and posting clips from everything. But come on down and join the fun, guys. We'd love to have you.
Bye.
Bye.